G'day legends. So it's been a little bit longer than a couple of days between our last studio build video. I started with great intentions of vlogging this whole thing and doing regular posts, but the time just hasn't been there to do that because we've been hitting the ground running so hard to try and get this space up and operational, which has meant some pretty long nights and some pretty long days. And you know, I've got to take my hat off to Pete for putting in the hard hours. If you're your first time tuning in, my brother-in-law Pete has been helping me build this new studio at my house, and it's been a big job, bigger than both of us probably anticipated. So that's why the video updates have been a little bit slower. So at the end of our last update, we had put the flooring down. So since then, we have filled the walls with sound insulation. We're using the Bradford sound screen in the walls, in the floor, and in the roof. So the walls and the roof have a double layer of insulation, and the floor just has some really thick floor bats in there. I pretty much did the insulation myself. I think Pete was happy about that because working with insulation is disgusting. It's just terrible stuff. And so originally we were going to use sound check for our plasterboard on the walls. And after kind of talking to a few people, a lot of people actually recommended fire check, that it was better even than sound check for acoustic treatment, just for how dense it is. And it actually ended up being cheaper to use fire check than sound check. I think that anything where you add the label like acoustic treatment or like, you know, a sound related thing, the price goes up exponentially. But they did say that fire check was just as good, if not possibly better than sound check. And so we did a double layer of fire check. Now, each sheet of fire check weighs 50 kilos. So I don't think we were quite expecting that, but putting that stuff on top of Pete's ute and driving it out, he had about 700 kilos of sound check on his roof at one point, which is just, it's a lot of weight, and just lifting those sheets and placing them around, it's just really difficult, and it makes the process a lot slower because you're working with such a heavy item. But it does mean that these walls are dense, and you know, I don't have to worry about the place burning down as quickly. And I think as far as containing the sound within the room, it's going to do a great job. Now, between our two layers of fire check on the walls, we put a furring channel. So there's this metal strip that's running across a couple of sections of the wall, and there's a bit of an air gap between the two layers of fire check. This is just to help disperse the sound a little bit further, so the two layers of fire check aren't pressed solely against each other and the sound can just penetrate straight through, which is creating a little bit of a gap there to break up the sound waves a bit. And of course, we used a plasterboard lifter for the roof. We could not have done it without that because of the sheer weight of these sheets. So that was awesome to have here. Just line it up, send it up, and then pin it in place. Now, you might remember there's a beam across the roof here that was like at the center of the garage. So that's kind of in a little bit of a funny spot in the room. It just looks like a little feature thing here. But basically, to box this out, we glued in some strips of wood so that we could stick the plasterboard to it. And then I cut lengths of plasterboard and stuck them in place up there, and it looked terrible. So Pete got me to box the beam out, and I said, I don't know what you're gonna do with this to make it work, but this looks like absolute rubbish at the moment. But somehow Pete has plastered it into this really nice square box. So he's done an amazing job with the plastering. And I will say that plastering is terrible. I hate plastering. So that was pretty much the next step after getting the plasterboard on the walls, was plastering up the gaps. And you know, Pete did all the plastering. I don't want to act like I had any hand in the plastering. I do not enjoy working with that stuff. All he got me to do was go around and like fill in all of the screw holes with plaster, and even that for me was painful, like just trying to get a smooth plastering over those holes. I don't know how people spend all day long plastering stuff, but gosh, I understand why they charge so much for it. But yeah, Pete did an awesome job, did all the corners, did the box out around the beam, which looks really tight. The staircase is like just a work of art. Like, he's just made that look really, really tidy. That was a horrible thing too. This whole process, that staircase, like boxing it out, insulating it, and getting, you know, plasterboard cut, it just added to the time. These are just things you don't think about. If you're just building a square room, things are a little bit quicker, but we've got these odd shapes in here that had to be boxed and plastered, and it just added to the whole process, taking a lot longer. And so of course, between like doing your plastering, you have to wait for it to dry, and then you gotta sand it, then you gotta plaster it again, and you gotta sand it. So things really slow down at the plastering stage. like plaster dust, oh my goodness, is just terrible. So you can have doors shut, whatever, it gets out and it just seeps into the house and through the rooms, and I'm finding white dust still like weeks later, like it just settles down yet again. It's like there's another layer of plaster dust. So once that's gone, I'm going to be very happy to be rid of that. So anyway, once that horrible experience of plastering was over, we can move on to the next thing, and that was hanging some doors. And so Pete and I were, trying to do this in a pretty condensed amount of time. Initially, I know some of you are going to laugh at this, but we thought that we would knock this out in 2 weeks, and pretty much did it in about 3, but like probably more like 4 considering how long the days were. But yeah, anyway, foolish, right? So there's quite a few doors here. One here, which is going to under the house. There's one here that goes into the storage space. There's 2 here, the double door, and then there's 1 on the staircase. So that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 doors. With a bit of research, it seemed that to hang a door can take half a day. Think about how many doors there are. Anyway, Pete knocked out 4 doors in a day, and they're awesome. So he bought this jig for the door, which like lets you route out where all of the hinges go. It makes it super quick and easy. And obviously with his skills as well, was able to punch the doors out super fast. And all the doors are solid core doors, just going for anything that's going to try and trap sound in a little bit more, as opposed to like a hollow door, which is just let sound through a little bit easier. And for the double door, we're using just dummy handles and a ball and latch system. So just to make it easier getting in between the doors, rather than have to like, twist the handle and twist the handle, you just pull it shut and it latches nicely. And so when the doors are being framed up and set up, there's a bunch of gaps and stuff in there that you can't fill with insulation or whatever. So we use some gap filling, some expanding foam, which you just spray in the gaps, and then it just slowly over time expands up and fills those gaps really nicely, which does help hold the sound in the space a lot better as well, because doors are a weak point for sound getting out. Something we haven't added yet, but we will, are some seals on the doors as well, just to really help trap the sound in a lot better. And of course, once the door jamb and everything is done, framing them up, making them look pretty. I never realized how many layers there were to a door until I saw Pete doing his thing and building one. And yeah, it's really interesting coming into a project like this. I'm not really that handy. I enjoy doing this stuff, but like it would have taken me forever to build a space like this on my own. Having someone like Pete who knows everything just makes it super easy. But just looking at how many layers and the framing and everything in the door was just like nuts. And then you seal it all up and it looks like one piece. It's cool. So once doors were all done, we moved on to Cornice. So the Cornice actually does a really good job at making the room feel like it's more finished. Like those gaps at the top where there's like the gaps between the roof plaster and the wall plaster, they just disappear and you get like just a nice finished look around the top of your roof. Cornice cement is a funny one to work with, because basically you just mix up this cement that dries really quickly, and it has like a pretty high tack to it as well. So you just get a really solid beam of that along your cornice. And then I had Pete, my dad and myself, and we were pushing it up into the roof, and it basically just sticks there by itself. You just got to line it up. Did a couple of them, needed a couple of little staple guns to hold it in place, but it's pretty crazy stuff, and it just holds it up there. Pete had a little jig for cutting the corners, all the complicated stuff, like having someone who knows their stuff, and like the amount of tools it takes to build a space like this. Like if you're DIYing this, it's still going to cost you a lot more when you start buying all the tools that you need to complete the job. Obviously it's cool then because you have those tools around, but for me, I have like a tool set from IKEA and like a Stanley set of screwdrivers, and that's kind of it. I don't have that many tools. So seeing the amount of tools that Pete unloads from his truck and has here, it's crazy. Like there's a lot of money that you need to spend in tools to be able to do these kind of jobs right. So once Cornice was set, we got the skirting down as well. So everything was just kind of like framed out, pretty much a finished room-ish kind of thing. And I didn't mention that we covered the floorboards straight after we did them with some stuff called Ramboard. It's this crazy thick cardboard, and basically like you can drop heavy items on it, spill stuff on it, you can cut it, and it just stops any bad stuff happening to the floor. So, you know, when I rolled this back off, once everything was done, the floors still look just as they were when we finished them. And even though that Ramboard got absolutely abused, I really was uncertain as to what I was going to find underneath it. But no, it just, that stuff's amazing. But yes, once everything was framed out, we got the skirting, cornice, doors all set up, we moved on to painting. And so Pete used a spray gun to paint the room, just like super quick, got the roof sorted, and we just used, you know, basic white roof kind of thing. And then a color called Greyology. I actually just let Pete choose the color because at this point in time, like in the last 2 months, I've packed up a house, I've moved the house, and I've built a studio, and it's just been long days. I've never felt this like tired in my life. But my sister was here the other day and she said, "You've got decision paralysis." She was probably just asking me like, "What do you want to eat for dinner?" And I was like, you know, I can't tell you what I want to do, because I've just been making so many choices lately that it's just like, Pete's like, "What color do you want?" I said, "I don't know, some kind of gray. You choose. I trust you." Like, I'm happy with what he chose. It's called Greyology. But that's kind of where it's at the moment with like my mindset. I'm just like, gosh, can someone please just do this for me and finish it, because I can't make any more decisions. So a couple of layers of that on the wall. Painting, gosh, painting's not fun either. Plastering and painting, just like all the filling, like once you frame up the doors and you got the nails and stuff and you got to spack it all out and then sand it back. Like the finishing stuff is really not the fun stuff. The fun stuff's putting up the frames and like putting down the floor and like those little things. When you start doing all the slow finishing stuff, like it really does slow down and everything starts to take a lot longer, and you just feel like you're not achieving as much in a day. But yeah, eventually, like once you get through it all and then like you paint it up and it's just like, okay, now it's starting to look cool. But it is funny when you walk into a room and it's like, oh, so you put up 4 walls. That's kind of like what Pete and I are joking about. Like, people don't see the depth that goes into a space and all the things that you do. And it's a huge process just to build a room. It's crazy. I really have a big appreciation for like construction and just like for builders, because there's so much in it. And obviously when you're working on a space, like there's tradies who come and do their thing and then they leave. But when you do it all, gosh, you do see just like how much stuff has to happen to make a room, to make a house, like to build a studio. Like, it's crazy. And so yeah, painting just sucks. Like painting the doors, we had to paint the doors like 3 or 4 times before we were happy with the level of the coating. Just stuff like that. It's boring, but yeah, obviously it makes a difference when it's done. You look at it and go, yeah, it looks good. And so some of you might be wondering like how I'm running cables. So basically I have a couple of stage boxes. You can probably see the wires running around behind me, and there is actually, I don't think you can see it, there's a hole in the wall. Maybe if I jump out of the way. So like back here, there's a hole in the wall here, and that is a tent pole. And so I am using that tent pole to guide through all of the XLR cables from the stage box and any other cables that I'm running into this room. And that goes under the house. And then I'm running another hole through into the control room from the other end of the under the house and feeding it back in there. So we've just got this little loop going under the house is where I'm running cables. That was just kind of like the easiest solution for us. That hole in the wall is massive. You think about how thick this wall is, and we've got to get through like 2 layers of fire check, the gap in the furring channel, and then there's the studs, and then there's the brickwork under the house. The hole's probably like this deep, so you really can't just like feed your hand through it. And so yeah, I'm using a tent pole, attaching a couple XLRs on it at a time and feeding it through. It's worked. They're all in there. I just need to go under the house and like run it through to the other side now. But that is how I'm getting cabling into this room. And so it's been really difficult in here because there is no windows, there's no light, and we've just been using my light box that I've been using for making videos to light the room, waiting for the electrician to come, and they did finally come a couple of days ago, installed the downlights, put the power points in. So it feels good in here now. It's like the room is done. And lastly, had the floors sanded and sealed, so they're going to be a little bit sturdier, a bit more protected. Brought out a really nice color in the floors as well, which looks great. So the space just feels really nice now. And as you can see, I've got a whole bunch of fresh panels. I made all of these in the last couple of days. They're basically just MDF boxes with insulation in them to just keep them really lightweight. That's what I've done with my previous panels. I know there's plenty of other ways you can do it. There's probably better ways to do it, but this keeps them really lightweight. All you have to do is put a little hook in the wall and you can just sit them on there. Don't have to worry about the plasterboard getting pulled down or anything like that. They just weigh a couple of kilos. So I made 16 of these boxes, filled them with sound screen insulation, and then I've just wrapped them in a nice charcoal fabric. And so that's the next job, is to hang these up evenly throughout the room so they don't look crooked and weird. But that's the job for tomorrow. And basically now it is just setting the space up. The control room's looking pretty good. I've got that pretty much set up. But yeah, just got to get the drums in here, set them up, get everything mic'd up again, get the panels on the walls. I do want to put some clouds up in here just because of time. It didn't end up happening, but it will happen. I'm going to put maybe like 2 clouds in this room just to help with some ceiling reflections. And then also going to put a cloud in the control room above the mixing desk. Pretty excited about doing that. It's just, as I said, things have taken a lot longer than initially thought. It's like that person who comes in and goes, oh, I'm going to record an EP in a day. Like, I'm going to build a studio in 2 weeks. Like, you're an idiot. So, but that kind of brings you up to date on the studio build and everything that's been going on. As you can see, it's pretty cool. Next video you're going to see is probably a tour of the new studio. So until next time, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And remember, if you want to support this channel, check out that link in the description below. Go and pick up a drum sample pack or a mixing course. That's just a massive way of showing your support to this channel, and you get something back at the same time. And if you haven't seen the other parts of this series, then check out the description below, because I'll keep links to all of the other studio build videos down there as well. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.